Hey everyone, welcome back to the Zen Curious. I am so excited about today's conversation with John Shaw, the son of Mary Sparrowdancer, author of The Love Song of the Universe. If you haven't read this book yet, it is an extraordinary spiritual journey filled with some profound encounters, divine messages, and a deep invitation to question everything we've been told. John joins us to reflect on his mother's legacy, her encounters with Indigenous spirits and Jesus, and her belief in the vibrational song woven into our very DNA. We also explore some of the more controversial insights, such as her views on fluoride and its role in spiritual suppression. This conversation is about questioning, awakening, and finding peace beyond conventional narratives. I can't wait to dive in. The journey begins now. Welcome back to the Zen Curious. I am so excited about today. John, it is a privilege to be here with you. I'm super excited to get into your mom, Mary Sparrowdancer's incredible journey, her book, The Love Song of the Universe, and some of the really profound spiritual experiences and teachings that she shared in this book. And I know it's very personal to you, so I just appreciate you sharing.
Oh, thank you for the chance to. This is one way to honor her and her legacy. And she passed away back in 2013. And I don't always get to talk to people about her book and the messages she left behind. And it's just a wonderful chance to. So thank you for having me here, Kira.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Before we get into the book and all of that, I want to start with something fundamental that we ask everybody. What does peace mean to you?
Right. And I've got some of your questions beforehand, so I was thinking about this quite a bit. Peace, for me, it really does go hand in hand with harmony. You hear the phrase peace and harmony all the time, but harmony more in line of, especially with the planet. We think of peace and harmony, we think of and with brotherhood and all that stuff. You can look at the planet at the moment and really get a sense of discord. So I think it's sort of an as above, so below, if you want to get really out there with it. But we have to not only treat ourselves and each other better, but also the planet. And it can just start with some basic stuff, and especially it should with regards to things that we can all agree upon, because we live in such a divisive world these days that a lot of these buzzwords and phrases, I think, just get under people's skin too much. Even something, climate change. Some people hear that and they want to, shove a pencil through someone's eye.
Right.
So clearly we have a
so
problem.
hostile.
Right, exactly. But, things instead like, well, should we have oceans full of plastic islands? Probably not. And
Right.
most people with common sense would say that. So those are the sorts of things I want to focus on to achieve peace. And I think finding common ground is a good way to at least start with that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Do you have any specific modalities that you turn to when maybe there's chaos in your life and you're looking to bring more peace into it?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of chaos, especially over the last year or two as I've expanded kind of my business horizons and whatnot. I've been dancing for a long time, line dancing in particular, over 8 years now. And I just started doing it kind of as a side business over the last year. So that's, while it was a form of peace for me, it's become a little bit more intense now. It's still a go-to for sure, and I absolutely love it and will continue to do it as long as my knees don't give out. But I'm trying to find all sorts of ways of achieving a little more peace, and this is a great way. Just talking to people. Talking to people about real stuff is a fantastic way. I always feel so much better afterwards.
I agree with that. And we're all always searching for more peace in our life. That's dancing is definitely something that I love to do. I've been to one of your line dancing classes. They're awesome, and you're also very good at it.
Thank you.
Who knew line dancing could be so difficult. But when you have a great teacher, it makes it a lot easier.
Well, there you go. And something could be drawn between that and Mom's book, and we'll talk about the teacher of Mom's book, Shirley, soon. And,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So yeah, let's talk about the book. The Love Song of the Universe. This was really powerful for me. I remember texting you. I wasn't even that far into the book, but I was like, I need John to know how much this is like speaking to me. It was just her vulnerability and what she was sharing and the seeking that she was doing. It came in a time when I really needed to see possibility. I really needed that permission. And it also opened a door for me to understand what a relationship with God, with divinity could look like outside of the structures of, a religious organization.
Absolutely.
So my first question for you about the book is, when did you first read it? Obviously, your mom wrote it, but that doesn't mean you read it when she wrote it. Right. I think you said 2001 it came out.
In fact, I remember when we received our first box, and we were so excited, and I still have my original copy. She took out, we opened the box, and here's all these books, and the first 2 copies she signed for me and my sister. And she said, to my son, John, who is my son. She had a great, fun way. She was such a funny lady and great with words and whatnot. And so I still have my copy. But yeah, back in 01, I think May of 01 was around when it came out. And she spent quite a while writing it. I think she said on the back cover 12 years or so. Mm-hmm. And it began the moment she started having strange encounters. She was already writing at the time, not.
She was a journalist, right?
Yes, she wrote for quite some time, but this was a different. She kind of shifted past and said, well, I'll start writing about this. But yeah, the first time I really sat down to read it was during my experience of incarceration, actually, and I don't mind sharing this at all. It's a part of my life. But yeah, back in 2003, I was incarcerated for a while. I did some bad things and ended up in jail. And I always tell people it's something I would never do again. It's not who I am. But it was such a valuable experience going through that. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I remember they weren't allowed to send books to the jail, but they could send 10 pages at a time through mail. So she would send me a little bit at a time. Yes. So I would get mail, and look forward to the next chapter, because you didn't have a whole lot to do, but
nothing but time.
Yes, exactly. And I was never a big reader. I didn't do great in school. I was a smart kid, and I turned out okay, I think. But
you turned out great.
Oh, thank you, Kira. Yeah, but I really enjoyed reading when I was in there, and I especially enjoyed reading her book, which I read several times and passed around to other inmates, and they loved it too. So it's just another example of how powerful her message was and how far and inward it spread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What do you think was the most important lesson she wanted to share with the world through this story?
Absolutely. I think ultimately it's so important to ask questions. Ask questions, and even go so far as to say to question authority. That's not meant to be a rebel or anarchy or anything like that. It's just that we've been taught by certain individuals or organizations to accept the status quo, do not question anything, and if you do, you will either be damned or you'll be, labeled as unpatriotic or insane. So it's really important to ask questions for yourself so you can find answers for yourself and for others too. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person for doing so. And I hope nobody will let anyone tell them otherwise. So that's a big message.
It's such a good message. And that was what the book did for me. I mean, it was like, wait, I am allowed to question. And wait, there's this whole other, there's all of these other scriptures that I didn't even know existed, the Gnostic Gospels. Mm-hmm. That's where I learned about the Gnostic Gospels, that were written, all around the same time. as the rest of the Bible, but for some reason we're left out and tell a more complete story, one that makes a little bit more sense to me. But anyway, I love it, exactly what it did. It was like, it's safe to question, and through questioning, so much is revealed.
Yes, absolutely.
If you allow your mind to be open to possibility, so much can be revealed to you.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And knowing that you never know.
Yeah, yes, that's important too, is to kind of stay humble through it. And one of the main messages of the teacher in the book, she would ask questions and she would say, okay, well, answer me this in a sort of way. And he wouldn't give the answer to it, because by asking the question, truly asking it, is where you start to find the answer to it, but it's not so much going to be given to you in some cases, if that makes sense. So
almost like a parable, or like an analogy. Like you've got to, it's a riddle you have to figure out. I'm not telling you the answer.
Precisely, yes, because it goes along with sort of teach a man to fish. That whole concept of if you find out for yourself, you'll keep opening your mind and become not wiser, but you know what I mean, sort of more open to the various possibilities of this world. We can put it that way, I'd say.
Yeah. Exactly. So this was not a fiction book.
Right.
But everything in it was very real. Yeah. But there are a lot of people who would read it, or just people in general being skeptical of mystical type experiences, that would say, there ain't no way this happened. This is totally a fiction book. Yeah. And so did your mom ever talk about how she dealt with skepticism or doubt, whether that be like from external or maybe internal?
Absolutely, yeah. She herself was very frustrated early on because she didn't ask for any of that. She was living a fairly normal life up until then, and all of a sudden she just started seeing things that other people perhaps weren't seeing. And encountering things. So it was frustrating to her, and I think that the nearest person that it was frustrating for was my father, who was mentioned many times in the book, who's still alive to this day, and he's a wonderful man, one of the smartest men I know, and in great health, and I just love him, and I feel for him truly, because he wanted so badly to see the things that she was seeing, but he just couldn't. So the best he could come up with was that he believed that she believed it. And I think that was as fair as it could get. And it wasn't enough to save the marriage or anything like that. And so it created a big conflict there. But past that, it's there's been a lot of non-believers, and sometimes it drives people to anger. And I was asking you before the podcast if I could touch upon this, and you gave me the blessing, so to speak. There was a phone call that I received back in 07 or 08 at the time, and a gentleman called and asked, "Is this? I'm looking for Mary Sparrowdancer." I said, "No, this is her son, John. You're Mary's son?" "Yes." He said, "Okay, well, I want you to tell your mother, Mary, that she's an anti-Semitic cunt." And he hung up the phone. And I was flabbergasted. Yes, Mom? Right. Yeah, Mom, hey. I got to relay something to you here. And I think I did tell her, and she just kind of chuckled and said, well, she was very used to all sorts of attacks and behavior from people, all across the range of the spectrum there. But she handled it usually with humor the best she could, as is a great tool with anything, to handle with humor. And her ultimate goal was to find peace and achieve peace. And so she knew that these people were angry, and it was out of fear and that sort of thing. So
fear makes you do.
Yeah, it can make you do a lot of crazy things. Yeah. So it was a big part of it, was the skepticism.
And I also think, like, for people who are very rational, logical thinkers, like it sounds like your dad is.
Absolutely.
It's difficult to allow yourself to explore spirituality in a realistic way.
Absolutely.
Which is what this was, to me, someone articulating, which is also very difficult to do, someone articulating what it is to have a spiritual experience as a human being in a human body on a physical plane. And it's you can't always explain it all.
Yeah. And sometimes there just are no words for it, and especially to someone who hasn't experienced anything like it, I can only fathom with the frustration that might entail of, well, how do I properly convey this too? But I understand, and I feel like I got kind of both sides of my mom and dad. Dad is very straight, narrow. You know, he was a lawyer at Florida Bar for 30 years in legal publications, 9 to 5. You know, just straight and narrow as they come, very logical. And then my mom, who was just way out, way out there. And so I try to, you know, adhere to a little bit of both, because I think you need a little bit of both to a degree. So
you got to stay grounded. I mean, we are still on a physical plane. You have to stay grounded.
Yes. Yeah.
But and I think you do. You balance those both very nicely.
Thank you.
So let's talk about some of those
Sure.
spiritual encounters. All throughout the book, your mom describes these encounters that she had with indigenous spirits, who she calls the Indians, throughout the book. And these weren't just visions. I mean, they were active presences, and they would leave behind things like ancient pottery and shells and stones, one of which John gave me one, and I still have it.
There you go.
This beautiful white stone. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll take a picture of it for you guys to make sure you can see it. And they would leave these items. So it's like you couldn't...
Yes, there's no denying that these were here. Right.
So what, if anything, do you remember about some of those encounters?
Yeah, it was definitely a strange childhood. But almost... to us, to my sister Emily and me, it became normal. It was normal. And I remember, as a child, being in front of the fireplace and one of these white stones. They all look pretty similar. And I still have the box full of these stones. There's a lot. One of them just plink, fell right out of thin air right in front of me. And I said, Mom, this must be for you. Yeah. And but it was just, it was just another day in the Shaw household. It was Shaw at the time for her. She later changed her name to Sparrowdancer. But there was that. We still have all sorts of the pottery collection. It's a number of pieces, and in particular, the real big one that stands out for me was the encounter with the man in the den. And if you end up reading the book, I don't want to spoil too much about it, but there was a man in the den, and he wasn't supposed to be there as far as I was concerned at the age of 2 or however old I was. And I sure let him and Mom know about it.
Yeah.
And it was terrifying, and it is burned in my memory of his stature and that particular wing of the house. Our house grew up in an area called Myers Park here in Tallahassee, and that whole area was built basically on Indian burial mounds. North Florida in general, I mean, we are right on top of it. So it made a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense well after the fact that sort of thing would or could happen. But
do you remember this being like a malevolent presence, or did you think it was?
It was so daunting to me at such a young age that my instinct was to just get out of there. Yes, exactly. But that wing of the house we had always kept that locked off for whatever reason, and that was even from the previous owners before it. They said, we don't like that area of the house. So
just got a weird vibe in that area?
Exactly, yeah. Which, hey.
That's interesting.
I can attest. It's not the most inviting place to go in the house, but a cool house nonetheless.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your mom, not only did she have these encounters with the Indians, but there was also visits with Jesus, who she described as Jesus, and not in a traditional religious sense, but more of like this being of immense love and wisdom. there was one thing I wanted to read about what she said. He was never about religion. He had come to remind us of our own divine origin. She also talks a lot about her. I don't know if I would struggle maybe with the concept of God.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way of putting it.
And one of the visitations with this teacher or one of the beings of light, I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly, but she actually is brought to this like crystal structure, and she hears this song, and the other thing I wanted to read was from that encounter, the being that she was with, I can't remember if it was Jesus or one of the other ones, but behold the city of angels, he said, and then he turned and looked at me. Behold yourself. We are now standing within an open chamber of your DNA. This is where the love song is being sung. So this idea that God himself is singing love songs directly into the DNA of our being. That if that doesn't bring you like comfort and peace, like
it makes me feel a little better about everything.
She had an article she wrote too, and she said, there's a song in our DNA that has never stopped singing despite the fact that we stopped hearing it thousands of years ago. It's time to finally listen and let the truth set us free.
I love that. Yeah, that's she had a way with words of really putting it succinctly. And
I find this particularly interesting and meaningful because of my research in sound and energy healing. There's been a lot of advances in physics and quantum physics and biology that suggest that our DNA isn't just this biological code, but it's also vibrational and energetic patterns. There's even a study that discovered that DNA emits and absorbs electromagnetic frequencies. Some researchers propose that DNA can even be influenced or reprogrammed by sound waves and frequencies.
I believe it. Yeah, absolutely.
So do you remember her ever talking about this specifically, about this love song or the connection to healing, whether that be physical healing or spiritual, emotional healing?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of it all there, really. It's on a higher level. And I've wondered kind of if it did have an audible song to it, what would that sound like if I could just play the MP3? What would it sound like? But I think we are hearing it as we go through this life is the best way I can put it, and we're kind of creating our own melody as hippie-ish as that sounds, but it's all about it.
There are we listen we're hearing it, but are we listening
that's
to
the
it?
Perfect way of putting it. Yes. Yeah.
Are we listening?
Right. And what will it take? What should we do if we are trying to hear it or listen to it? What can we do to kind of slow down maybe a little bit and hear what it has to say? Hear what we have to say. It's kind of internal as well as outward. Again, as above, so below. It's a great way of putting it. It's beautiful no matter what we're going through. Times are tough right now. It's a very scary world out there, but I think it's all a part of this love song, and I think it has a happy ending, and we're in a crescendo right now.
Yeah. I mean, all of these practices that we talk about to bring us peace, meditation, sound healing, all of it is in an effort to turn our eyes inward and listen to our own song and tune out what's happening externally. I mean, this is in Nada Yoga, it's called the unstruck sound. It's what is the sound of silence, because that is also a sound. And some people even we could go into a whole other podcast on that, but I'll stay focused. But that in particular, it feels like a warm hug, and it also makes my brain explode, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it just makes sense without even knowing anything else. Like that it just makes sense to me.
Yeah, you feel it. And I feel it too. It does make a lot of sense. And I hope that's one thing that we can all kind of come together on. And again, going back to harmony and that sort of thing, things we can agree about, is finding some common spirituality between us all. What do we all, well, we all want to be happy. We all want love in our lives, you know. And even the people who claim not to, well, I hope we can ask enough questions to figure out why that is. Yeah, sometimes it might take just calming down for a minute and just allowing yourself to hear something.
Yeah.
You know? Who knows?
Yeah. So another thing that's very relevant today, just if you turn on the news, your mom has an article that she wrote called "The Gospel of Judas, Barbelo, and Long Kept Secrets." And in this article, she talks about a lot of things, but one of the things that she talks about, and even in part 2 of this book, which came out in the 2nd edition, fluoride. Kind of veering off far left here, but fluoride. And what she talks about is how fluoride accumulates in the pineal gland, basically turning it into stone, calcifying it. And our pineal gland is our connection to spiritual awareness. Right. So this is really interesting and does connect. She suggests that it interferes with our ability to access higher consciousness, and she also suggests that it might suppress the natural production of DMT, which is also called the spirit molecule. Where the you know, correlation to what's going on right now comes in is RFK Jr. has been talking a lot about fluoride and fluoride's role in lowering IQ, impairing cognitive function. There was a study in 2019, a JAMA pediatric study that found that children exposed to fluoride in the womb had significantly lower IQ scores. And the
I remember reading that article.
The National Toxicology Program report also confirmed that fluoride is a neurotoxin. Right. So this is today. Right. I mean, your mom passed away in 2013, and she wrote this stuff before 2010.
Absolutely.
So how did she come to believe that fluoride was a part of this greater problem to suppress spiritual awakening?
Of course, and she started researching it back in probably 2002, 2003, and I remember that because I had a furlough from jail once. I had braces when I was in jail, by the way.
He was a baby.
Yeah, I was a baby, yeah. And I had a furlough to get some work done and to also get my teeth cleaned. And I remember they came out and asked me and my parents if, what about fluoride treatment? And Mom said, no, no fluoride. So there was the answer there. So yeah, it goes back a long time. And also goes to show how long these studies have been carrying on for. But the one thing that hasn't changed is the pointing of the finger. And again, RFK Jr., I'm sure, is getting just riddled with accusations of being, insane. And
he got called a conspiracy theorist in his hearing.
I believe it. And just for not only asking questions but making claims, of course. But these are backed by many scientific studies. This in particular, with fluoride. I can't speak to anything else, but knowing what my mom researched and what she told me, and through the articles that you can read, it's pretty clear to me that there's an inherent danger in consuming perhaps any amount of fluoride, let alone putting it in the drinking water. And there's just no need, in my opinion. And it kind of goes back to the whole nanny state idea. Same thing with the drug war or anything else, of just overly controlling. Well, people got to have good teeth. Well, okay, well, teach them how to brush their teeth and have good habits, And yes, and so same with dangerous drugs. It's like, okay, well, I understand that you don't want people doing dangerous drugs, but you don't solve that by forcing people to one way or another,
right?
How they live their lives, and here we are. So same sort of concept here of over fluoridation. And it makes a lot of sense why we don't have these sort of mystical experiences that we read about our ancestors, having these things, and we think, oh, well, that's crazy. They must have been crazy. That might have been how it was supposed to be, and what have we done to diminish that? And in particular, psychedelics are said to open people's eyes and have those same experience. Well, those are banned too. So once you start piecing all this together, you understand, because they don't. I say they. There's people out there who don't want us asking questions, who don't want us experiencing these perhaps wonderful things.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think that your mom saw the fluoride or this desire to suppress as intentional, keeping people disconnected from their true potential or their spiritual connection?
Yeah, I'm sure of it. I don't recall a specific conversation, but that was where it was all kind of stemming from. Again, it all being connected. It didn't come from ignorance. It wasn't the FDA got together and said, well, we think this will help people's teeth, and there you go. Mom and I both felt way deep down that it goes way further than that.
Yeah.
And it's not far-fetched.
Right. I know truth is stranger than fiction anymore today.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So we talked about this a little bit, but your mom's beliefs weren't mainstream.
Right.
Particularly some of the challenges, the religious institutional challenges that she posed with her writing and being in, the Bible belts of in Florida, North Florida. Some people, call it out there. You referenced a phone call that she got. Did her coming out with this story create isolation for her? And if it did, maybe a little bit about that, but also were there certain communities that she felt held her in this and
certainly.
her?
A lot of the Native American communities, the Lakota people were very kind to her, and I still have her medicine bowl that was given to her by the Lakota people, and my goodness, I mean, just there was a peace pipe as well. Part of my sisters and my favorite memories were meeting these various Native American people. We used to have powwows here in Tallahassee back before the tribes started feuding. Tom Brown Park. I don't know if you ever went to or heard of those, but man, they were great. And so that community in particular, for sure. But Mom actually, kind of later in life, became somewhat of a hermit, and she certainly still communicated with many people, usually through email, but she did isolate quite a bit. And I think that was really just more by choice, and she wanted some peace and quiet for herself because of everything she had been through up until then, And one thing I want to point out is my mom was human just like the rest of us. She wasn't a saint. She was not above one person or another.
Nor does she ever claim to be in her book.
Yes, and she certainly had her own demons that she dealt with, and I feel she's in a better place, and I'm glad she made it there. I joke with people, it's a morbid joke, but she would have loved it because she and I had a great understanding of death, and she and I talked about it of when she would pass. But in the book and in Mom's life, she died and came back to life back in '88, and I joke with people that in 2013 she died for good that time. So that was it. But I think she was ready,
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you said you had a good understanding of, what was that? What did that look like? What did she believe happened?
Yeah, well, we talked about it, I want to say a couple years before it happened, and she said that, no matter what, she'll always be here, and it just, I was at such peace with that, and I grieved when she died, but perhaps not even as heavily as I have for other people that I'm not even related to. But the reason why is because she and I both had that understanding, whereas perhaps me and these other folks, we never got to talk about it, and so there was gaps left there. But it was, Mom had such profound beliefs and understandings that the topic of death was just another drop in the bucket, so it's all just a part of it.
Yeah. It is. I mean, in other cultures, it's something we fear so much in the West, and in other Eastern cultures. I mean, like it's just something that they talk about as it's part of being a living being.
Yes, absolutely.
And it doesn't mean we don't grieve, but it is part of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is inevitable.
Yep, right. Yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, death and taxes. Those
Yeah.
two things, right, as they say.
Maybe not taxes anymore. I don't know.
I would like that to not be inevitable, right?
So if your mom was here today, based
yeah.
on some of the things that she
Yeah.
taught you, what do you think she would want people to know about their own spiritual journey, or what do you think she would want to leave with, other than what you shared in the beginning about always seek?
Yeah, asking questions, that sort of thing. Well, everyone's journey is different, and some people, I think, I've even experienced some people who get frustrated that they can't have those sorts of experiences. And I understand there are times in my life where things will be so very intense. I'll have these synchronicities going on, serendipitous things, and I'm all but begging for things to calm down because my blood pressure's going up here, But then other times it'll be months on end where it's just a relative peace, and I'll begin to almost lose faith, so to speak, in a word. Is there anything going on out there? Has it all been? Have I been mistaken about something? But life kind of ebbs and flows.
Yes, it does.
And you're right where you need to be. And I think if you do start asking enough questions and being open to whatever, if an experience doesn't open itself up to you, you will open yourself up to it, and perhaps just in doing so create your own magic. And belief is a powerful tool. I tend to adhere to a good bit of astrological beliefs, and it's something I look into daily. And some people say, "Oh, that's nonsense," whatever. And well, it doesn't matter if it's nonsense or not. It's what I choose to do with it and believe in it. And I've taken that and I've used it to change my life in better ways. I feel like it's saved my life. So who's to say, regardless if mom had these experiences or not, what did she do with her beliefs about it? And she wrote a book and she's changed people's lives. Yeah. So that's the idea.
Yeah. I think that's such a good, takeaway is everybody's spiritual walk is different. Yeah. And are we sharing what we're learning while we're on it?
Right.
Unapologetically.
Yes.
Sharing
yes.
what the song of our heart.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Sharing and not forcing either.
Yeah.
And this is
just sharing.
Yes, just sharing. Yes. And I have respect for all the different religions out there, unless any of them are just about absolute destruction and devastation. But tolerance is very important too, and allowing people to believe what they believe as long as it doesn't inflict harm on others. So it's good to be open to listening, and being human is to be humble and open to new experiences too, and not set in your ways, So these are important things as well.
Yeah. So if people want to read this amazing book, I know it's not in production anymore.
Correct. It is out of print.
I don't know if it is still available in hard copy form, but is there a way people can get access to
it's tough to find. This particular edition, this is the second edition, is nearly impossible to find online. Yes. Right. Let the bidding begin.
No. It's signed. It is signed. I have a signature.
She does. Look at that. Yep, absolutely. But you can, I still find her original first edition on eBay all the time, relatively inexpensive. You can find them, $10 a pop or less. So that's a great place to start. She did release the book for free on PDF. Can we include a link with your podcast?
Yes,
I will give Kira the link.
Fantastic.
And yes, there you go. You all are welcome to read it, and please feel free to send me any sort of questions you have as well. I still hear from people every now and then. In fact, just a couple months ago, a gentleman emailed me and asked if I was Mary's son, and he had been trying to get in touch with her for a while. He didn't know that she had passed away. And so, But he and I spoke on the phone a couple weeks ago. We had an hour-long conversation, and it was just wonderful how she continues to touch people's lives.
She was right. She is always going to be with you. How cool is that?
Yeah, exactly. So, but yes, we'll be glad to give you a link if you'd like to read it.
That's awesome. And if people have questions for you or are interested in learning more about you, how can they?
Yeah, certainly. I can give you my email address. You're welcome to call me as long as there's no anti-Semitic comments about my mom.
We'll start with email, and if you choose to give out your phone number after that, we can do that.
Right, absolutely.
But we'll include that in John's email in the show notes.
Wonderful. Yeah. Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kira. This is so wonderful to be able to talk about her and hopefully have some folks listen and enjoy it. So thank you guys for listening, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll have other things to talk about in the future, and we'll have you back on.
I would love that. Thank you, Kira.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This conversation with John was such a beautiful reminder that peace isn't just about quiet. Sometimes it's about asking questions, staying open, and embracing the mystery of our own spiritual journeys. If today's episode resonated with you, I encourage you to explore Mary's work, dive deeper into the love song of the universe, and reflect on ways that we're all part of this greater song. And as always, if you loved this episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave us a review and connect with us on social media. Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and stay curious. Thank you for listening.